Ms. Lieu, Mr. Lieu.
Thank you, Chairman Nadler. Let me set a context for why we are even here today. We're here because the Russians sweepingly and systematically hacked our elections in 2016. Roger Stone coordinated with WikiLeaks, who had the emails that Russian hackers stole from the Hillary Clinton campaign. Roger Stone also coordinated with members of the Trump campaign and spoke to Donald Trump himself. The Trump campaign embraced the stolen emails, planned their campaign messaging based on the Russian hack. And then after Roger Stone was convicted of multiple crimes, Bill Barr's Department of Justice intervenes to lower the sentencing recommendation. That is a perversion of justice. I'm a former prosecutor, and it's clear to me that the only reason we were able to take the extraordinary step of locking people up in prison is because the people believe our processes are fair and based on the facts. One of the greatest dangers to democracy is when the people start believing that prosecutions are tainted based on who the defendant happens to know. And unfortunately, under Bill Barr's Department of Justice, friends of Donald Trump get breaks and special favors from the Department of Justice that no ordinary American could ever get. So my questions are for Mr. Zelensky. Mrs. Zelensky, before you worked at the Department of Justice, you clerked for Judge Thomas Griffith of the D.C. Circuit. He was nominated by a Republican president, correct?
That's correct. He was nominated by President George W. Bush.
And then you clerked also for Justice Anthony Kennedy, who also was nominated by a Republican president, correct?
President Reagan, that's correct.
And before you could become a United States attorney, you had to take an oath, and that oath was to the United States Constitution, correct?
When I became an assistant United States attorney as required by law, I took that oath. I actually had to take a similar oath on a number of occasions for various federal jobs that I've held, including the clerkships you just mentioned, Congressman.
So your client is not Donald Trump or Bill Barr. It is the Constitution of the United States and the American people. Isn't that right?
That is correct.
And on behalf of the American people, you and other career prosecutors submitted a sentencing memo of 7 to 9 years for Roger Stone. Is that right?
That accurately describes the sentencing memorandum, yes.
And when Judge Jackson viewed that recommendation, did she think it was supported by the record?
She did. She said that the sentencing memo that we had filed complied with all law, relevant DOJ policy, and practice, and was supported by the record.
After you submitted that sentencing recommendation, the President of the United States went nuts and said it was horrible, unfair. And then another memo was submitted by people above you. Were you told why they submitted that memo of a lower sentencing recommendation?
I was told that the U.S. attorney was taking action because he was afraid of the president. As I discussed, I was told that earlier, and I was told that there was heavy political pressure from the highest levels of the Department of Justice to cut Roger Stone a break.
Did any career line assistant U.S. attorney sign that lower sentencing recommendation?
None.
Okay. In the memo you had submitted initially, were you asked to remove portions about Roger Stone's misconduct?
We were.
Is that unusual?
I've never had it before in my experience.
Okay. Now, Mr. Mukasey has said that Attorney General could certainly ask for a sentence below the sentencing guidelines. But to be clear, that is not your problem with what happened. It's not that something was asked below the sentencing guidelines. It was a process, right, where the reason it was done was because Roger Stone was a friend of Donald Trump and the acting U.S. attorney was scared of the president. Isn't that right?
That is one of the problems. There were also flaws in the second sentencing memorandum that I believe should not have been submitted as well, besides the recommendation itself.
And do you believe those flaws were done because Roger Stone is a friend of Donald Trump?
I was told that the acting United States attorney was taking the actions that he was because he's afraid of Donald Trump. I was not told why the second sentencing memorandum was done the way it was because by the time it was filed, I had withdrawn from the office and I was not given the ability to review the materials, nor was I told who was writing it.
Thank you. And my last question. In United America, we do not prosecute people because of their politics. That's what you wrote. You also wrote, and we don't cut them a break because of their politics either. Was Roger Stone cut a break because of his connection to Donald Trump?
That is what I was told, and that is what appears to have happened to me.
Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back.
Our great senators. Hi, Chuck. He used to love me when I was a Democrat, you know.